The ritual fire burned high in the center of the moonlit clearing, its orange tongues licking at the star-strewn sky, casting shadows across the gathered wolves who stood in tense anticipation. Tonight was the binding ritual, the sacred ceremony where bonds were formed, mates chosen, and futures sealed in the eyes of the pack and the spirits. Every year, the clearing filled with laughter, hope, and the promise of unity. But tonight, laughter had a cruel edge. It wasn't joyous. It was sharp, mocking, aimed like daggers at the figure who stood trembling near the outer edge of the circle. Her name was Leora, the smallest and weakest of her generation, an Omega by birth and rejected by fate. She stood barefoot in the grass, her pale dress a poor substitute for the shimmering silks worn by the others. Her dark hair fell in tangles around her face, hiding the tears that threatened to spill from her eyes. She knew what they thought of her, that she was worthless, unwanted, destined to serve rather than to be chosen. The ritual demanded that each wolf step forward to claim or be claimed. Already, pair after pair had been formed, laughter and cheers filling the clearing as bonds sparked in the firelight. But when Leora stepped forward, silence had fallen. And then came the cruelest laughter of all. "No one wants her," a sneer echoed from the left side of the circle. "She's barely wolf at all. Who would waste a bond on an Omega?" Another voice laughed. The words stung, but Leora forced herself to hold her head high, though her hands trembled at her sides. She had always known this was a possibility. Omegas were rare, born with weaker auras, their wolves slower, their power diminished. Many saw them as burdens. She had told herself she wouldn't cry, that she wouldn't give them the satisfaction. But standing there alone while others paired off, the weight of rejection pressed down on her chest like a stone. The fire roared higher, as though mocking her too, and the final call of the ritual came. "Step forward if you have found your bond," the elder intoned, his voice deep and solemn. Silence followed. No one stepped toward her. No one even looked at her. She stood alone, unwanted, the circle closing tighter as though to push her out. And then, from the shadows, came a presence so powerful it stole the air from her lungs. The Alpha arrived. He moved like the night itself, tall and broad-shouldered, his aura radiating dominance so potent that even the fire seemed to bow in his presence. His name was Kale, Alpha of the Blood Moon Pack, a figure both feared and revered. His eyes glowed a molten gold that pierced through the mocking crowd and landed squarely on her. The murmurs rippled through the gathering like a storm. He had not been expected to appear at this ritual. He rarely did, for his bonds and authority were already beyond question. But here he was, and his gaze was fixed not on the proud warriors or the decorated daughters of the Beta line. His eyes were on her. The laughter faltered, silence pressing in like a blade. Kale stepped forward, each stride echoing power, and the wolves parted before him without question. He stopped before Leora, and the firelight caught the scar that traced along his jaw, a mark of countless battles. His gaze softened, only for her. "Why do you stand alone?" he asked, his voice low, resonant, and carrying the weight of command. Leora swallowed hard, her throat tight. "Because no one would claim me." A muscle ticked in his jaw, and his eyes flared. The crowd shifted uneasily as the Alpha's aura deepened, heavy and suffocating. "Then they are fools," Kale said, his words sharp as steel. Slowly, deliberately, he extended his hand toward her. "Because I will." Gasps tore through the clearing, disbelief painted on every face. The Alpha choosing an Omega. Impossible, unthinkable. Yet Kale's gaze never wavered, his hand steady, his presence unyielding. Leora's heart thundered in her chest as her trembling fingers lifted and found his. The moment their skin touched, a spark flared, bright, searing, undeniable. The bond snapped into place like destiny itself had carved it from the stars. The fire roared higher in approval, and the spirits answered with a howl that echoed across the night. Leora staggered as the warmth of the bond coursed through her veins, filling her with strength she had never known. Kale steadied her, his grip strong, his aura wrapping around her like a shield. "From this night forward," he declared, his voice thundering with Alpha command, "she is mine. And anyone who dares mock her mocks me." The crowd bowed, some in awe, others in barely restrained resentment. But none dared defy him. And so, the rejected Omega became the Alpha's mate. Yet destiny was not so easily won. The days that followed were a storm of whispers and sideways glances. Leora walked through the pack's territory with Kale's mark of claim glowing faintly at her neck, yet the stares lingered. She heard the mutters behind her back. That she had bewitched him, that it was a mistake, that an Omega could never stand at the Alpha's side. She tried to hold her head high, but the weight of their doubt pressed heavily on her shoulders. Kale, however, never wavered. He trained her, guided her, shielded her. He stood beside her at every gathering, his hand firm in hers, his aura a warning to any who dared question her place. But the shadows of resentment brewed darker with each passing day. There were those within the pack who coveted the Alpha's favor, who believed the title of Luna should belong to someone stronger, someone born of power. Among them was Selene, daughter of the Beta, fierce and beautiful, who had long believed herself destined to be Kale's mate. She watched Leora with eyes of ice, her smiles sharp as knives. "You don't belong here," she hissed one evening when she caught Leora alone by the river. "You're weak, you're nothing, and one day, he'll realize it." Leora bit back the sting of her words, but doubt crept in, whispering like a serpent in her mind. What if Selene was right? What if she wasn't strong enough? Kale deserved a Luna who could stand beside him in battle, not one who flinched at every shadow. But when she returned to Kale, he read the turmoil in her eyes. He cupped her face in his hands, his gaze burning into hers. "Never doubt what we are," he said, his voice firm. "The bond chose you, I chose you, and no one will take that from us." His words were a balm, but the trials had only begun. Darkness stirred at the borders of their land. Rogues gathered in growing numbers, their attacks growing bolder. Whispers spoke of a rival Alpha rising, one who sought to crush the Bloodmoon pack and claim its power. Kale prepared for war, and the pack trained tirelessly. Leora watched from the sidelines, feeling useless, her heart aching to contribute. But Kale refused to let her risk herself. "You are my heart," he told her. "I cannot lose you." Yet fate had other plans. One night, under a sky thick with storm clouds, the rogues struck. They came in waves, snarling and savage, their eyes gleaming with madness. The pack fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered. Kale led the charge, his wolf a force of fury and dominance, but even he could not be everywhere at once. Amid the chaos, Selene approached Leora, her face twisted with a cruel smile. "This is your fault," she spat. "If he wasn't wasting his strength protecting you, he could win this fight." Leora's blood boiled. She had been silent long enough, had endured enough. She would not stand by while others fought and bled for her. Something deep inside her stirred, a power she had never touched before, hidden and waiting. Her wolf, long subdued, surged forward. With a cry that tore from her soul, Leora shifted. For the first time, her wolf form emerged, not weak, not fragile, but radiant, her fur shimmering silver under the storm. Gasps echoed even in the chaos as wolves turned to see her transformation. Power pulsed from her, raw and untamed, as though it had been waiting for this moment. She leapt into battle, her jaws finding rogue throats, her claws rending flesh. She fought not with brute strength but with speed and cunning, her presence rallying those around her. Kale felt her through the bond, pride swelling even as he fought. Together, they carved through the rogues, side by side, Alpha and Luna, strength and light. The tide turned, and the rogues began to falter. Their leader, a hulking black wolf with eyes like burning coals, lunged at Kale. But Leora was faster. She threw herself between them, taking the blow meant for her mate. Pain seared through her as claws tore into her side, but she held her ground, her teeth sinking into the enemy's throat. With a final, savage twist, she brought him down. Silence fell over the battlefield as the remaining rogues scattered. The Bloodmoon pack stood victorious, bloodied but unbroken. Kale rushed to her side, his hands shaking as he pressed against her wound. "Why?" he demanded, anguish in his voice. Leora smiled weakly, her silver wolf fading back to her human form. "Because I am yours, and you are mine, and I will always fight for us." The wound was deep, but she survived. And in the days that followed, the pack's whispers changed. No longer did they call her weak, or unwanted. They called her Luna, and they meant it. They saw her not as an Omega but as the heart of their Alpha, the light that turned the tide of battle, the mate who had proven her worth in blood and fire. Selene's bitterness turned to silence. She could no longer deny what the spirits had made clear. And so, The rejected Omega became the Alpha's chosen, not by pity, not by accident, but by destiny fulfilled. Leora stood at Kale's side as the pack howled beneath the moon, her hand in his, her bond burning bright. She had been laughed at, rejected, cast aside. But now, she was more than an Omega. She was Luna, and she would never stand alone again.